bubble.
Welcome. What's wrong?
Did you just expect me to interrupt you or something?
I always do.
And then you stopped after saying welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always stop because I never know what I'm going to say next. But
If
I
you
know
did,
that I'm going to say that we are here to look at some charts.
pretend
graphs.
like you know what you're going to say, and it will come to you.
Yeah. I think about the future where I finished what I'm saying, and then I work my way through that.
That genuinely describes the way it sounds like. What it sounds like it's going on when you're talking. It's just it's like you're trying to imagine where you're going to end up as you're going along, but it's not the next word that matters. It's the ending, but you don't really know the ending anyway. So it's really it's really upsetting. Basically, it's what it is.
All right. So
Anyway,
how about the person who does know what we're doing here? Yeah.
I mean, you don't not know.
You go.
You're not really in the dark. This isn't going to be particularly long. So this is, I don't know, Steam Charts Rundown is the only name I really have for it. There's not going to be like a fun series name for this, let's be honest. And we haven't done it that many times before. I think we've only done it twice, in fact. And I don't know when the first one was, but the last one was around the time of the November update. Because we didn't do one for the February update because, let's be honest, wasn't worth talking about. There was literally no change. I mean, that is something that we will observe, though, in this, because it is more so going to be making points about how the game has done numbers-wise, basically since the last time we did this, which was the November one. But before we do that, well, first of all, I guess I should show you all this website. Look at this. Steam charts. Look what's at the top. It's Counter-Strike, obviously. And this basically lets you know that this is the true way you know humanity is doomed. Not anything else. Not like, world disasters and horrible events going on. No, Steam charts.
Yeah, it is interesting how you just sum up the top 5, and you basically got 2 million people currently playing games. Which is interesting.
Well, I mean, okay, I want to point out on screen it cuts off here, so I'm just going to scroll down a bit. There you go.
Banana. And
Elden Ring went on screen as well. In fact, do you want to know what banana is? Look it up for yourself. It's really depressing that this game is doing exceedingly well.
Well, there's a game that's just appeared and is already doing pretty highly. Let's scroll down a bit more. I assume we wouldn't be able to see it.
This?
The First Descendant. Yeah, it's not even a thing, and then it's beating out stuff.
Have you even heard of that?
I
haven't.
Team Fortress 2.
I've got no idea what that is.
I have. It's on Xbox for free. It's like a looter shooter, apparently. Is what it calls itself.
Right. Of course, GTA is there as well. But yeah, so this is our way of basically... Because there are some things that are arbitrary and some things that are not. But let's be honest. I don't think this is arbitrary. I think the amount of players, and certainly peak players, are legitimate metrics by which you can observe how well something is doing. Or how well something has done. Such as an individual update, for example. But before we get into that, I want to find where DRG is. So I'm going to click more. All right, got Crab Game. It's good.
Wallpaper engine. I'm surprised people are still playing Power.
Yeah, Destiny 2, Baldur's Gate 3, which is quite low, but lower than it has been. Obviously, it's still more than respectable. All right, all this crap. Siege.
I'm glad Siege is that low down.
Yeah, but this isn't low really, though, is it? Cats. Dead by Daylight. Ark Survival Evolved. VR chat. Helldivers 2. Very low. From what I expected.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Bloons Tower Defense 6. Deep Rock Galactic. Number 72.
Oh, there it is.
currently
That's pretty good. It's above a fair-
16,187.
It's above the latest Battlefield, right?
Yeah, so I guess.
there's
Well,
something
actually,
there.
well, where is it? It's okay. It's not on screen here, but also Fallout 4. Battlefield 5 is doing better, much better than this. It was like much earlier. So scum. So yeah, but I do think this placement here is interesting because it could immediately. I think that could ring some alarm bells. You know, it's like, why is it so low down? Season 5 just come out. It should be like number 2
for PC. It's been like
it's been a while now.
3 weeks now.
Yeah, it's been over
yeah,
3 weeks.
Like over about a month. A month, right?
Not yet. But it's been a while. And look, the game has been out for over 6 years. I mean, it's really not doing that bad, and it's just not like the game has a presence. So if it's posted anywhere online, people recognize it, but it still never broke into being like actually mainstream. Is what this kind of thing makes me realize. It's not like being talked about as the new big thing, even when it gets like an update. That didn't happen. It just sort of rose into weird like meme status, and then got pretty popular for a while. And then that gained quite a few permanent players. But
a Rock or a Stone,
yeah,
or Carl or anything along those lines, suddenly the comments will be filled with people saying the exact same shit. That's how people, like the general public, knows of the Rock Galactic.
Yes.
More than the game or anything.
I would say, by the way, more than a lot of these other games, more than Scum or Heroes Land or whatever that is, or people know what Yu-Gi-Oh is, but do they know what Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel is? No. I don't think so. But they do know what Deep Rock Galactic is. And I think, by the way, I'm gonna go back just quickly. You can look at the peak like players and see that it's got an edge over quite a few.
Basically, all of them.
Yeah, pretty much everything around surrounding it.
The next, like the Valheim is the highest thing that has a higher peak. Which I think
it starts to
is
change a bit the more you go up, but still. So let's actually click on this fellow itself. First of all, 24-hour peak of 25,000 is actually quite good. That's like almost 10,000 more than who are currently playing. So big up Deep Rock there.
That was a good day.
But the real star of the show is the all-time peak. Not necessarily the number itself, although I think we will try and extrapolate something from the specific number, but more so when that peak player count was obtained. Very easy to see. Last 30 days. Season 5 launch date, to be exact, is when this peak player count was obtained, which is
wonderful. It wasn't the day of, wasn't it the next day?
So June 14th is when it released. Oh, we don't actually have it on here.
It's the last 7 days.
Yeah.
Oh,
June 15th. Or is that higher?
Yeah, that was it. Oh, it's close there. Either way,
they're basically the same, aren't they? So June 16th, June 15th, but it came out on June 15th, I think. It was what it. Obviously, we should know. Not hard to find the information, by the way. 13th. Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, that makes sense because of the chart. Like, if you look at it, I assume the 13th is when it actually like shoots up, right?
Well, no, actually.
No, not there. No,
there. I know.
They're very clear. Fucking hell.
I mean, I'm thinking shoot up to the peak, but you're right. Yeah, here. Yeah.
Yeah, when people played it again.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah.
Do you know what that also tells me? Is that it doesn't. The fact that there's an update coming really doesn't do much to bring people back in before it actually comes out. Which I'm not saying that doesn't make sense, because it makes perfect sense. But it does tell me that it doesn't. The marketing didn't draw players back in. It just the update itself coming out did. Just.
Can you say that's true? Due to March, what happened in March? Because there was no update or anything. Was that not the announcement of the update?
Well, that was really that was the anniversary.
which is when they announced the update.
March 1st.
Yeah.
First details for season 5 are here. Okay. So, that's a good catch, actually.
I think, the March, probably anniversary combined with
this is perfect,
knowing
actually.
about season 5 definitely reinvigorated people. But then once people knew it was coming, but that it was not anytime soon, player base did kind of die essentially. Like it's and I mean realistically, that graph kind of tells you that we're heading back down to
hopefully a more stable level again. But let's be honest, okay, so I mean, look, we're looking at the space between that announcement and it coming out. It's sort of like sitting around 10 to 20,000.
The thing says 9 to 8, but the chart says not that, which is a bit odd.
Yeah, but so far it's sort of like varying from 15 to 25,000. And the thing I want to keep an eye on in the future is, if it's gonna dip potentially below where it's sort of been sitting before season 5 at any point between now and the next big thing.
Yeah.
Either Rogue or season 6, by the way. Either one of those.
Like you can really kind of confidently say that like 8,000 to 10,000 players are the type that won't really stop playing the game, right? Like those are the players that like at least like I guess there's like new people trying it, and like that number is like stays consistent, but like there is a solid amount of players that will just play the game irregardless of the world ending.
Irregardless.
Right? And you really kind of have to keep out if those numbers start dropping. Like if it starts going below like 8,000, right?
Yeah, so you're looking at that, aren't you? Kind of.
Like
because this is the month before. This is the month before season 5. This is the biggest lull since the previous peak. And the biggest lull before that was right before. Actually, that's interesting. So look at so I think we're gonna let's not go too far past season 3. But season 3 is important to note still because that was the previous peak. But look, so season 3, November 2022, peak 46,000. October, very low. I mean, that's a bit lower August, but overall, that's like the lowest it was in a while, except for August. You go to look at June and May, June being season 5 release, May being the month before, it's the lowest the peak players was in a while. And
it is actually
what that tells me? That makes it seem like the player base is more aware than maybe I give them credit for. That there's an update coming because they're not bothering.
It does seem like the announcement of season 5 made people like give it a break until season 5. Like that seems to be like a genuine number because like there wasn't really much reason to play the game, since season 4. Well, even from season 4. But it never went lower than 10,000, right? Like during that whole time, which I do think the announcement obviously boosted it then, but then people were like, all right, I'm gonna chill until season 5 comes out, and now they're back.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that's worth noting is that the game hasn't dipped below 10,000 peak players since it started, growing. Since season started, basically.
Yeah.
It's been, there's just been some good stuff before, but still, it's been pretty solidly above 10,000 since then. But still, I do think it's important to note that the lowest point is like right before the big updates. But that kind of thing doesn't apply as much to certain others, like even like November, which by the way, I for some reason I remember November being a bit more of a peak for the November maintenance update, but it's actually kind of not at all
changing that much.
No, it didn't.
There was a notable increase, but like not a significant one. But ultimately, like you do have to agree with Ghost Ship about the maintenance updates, right?
Yes.
But, considering how like how much it seemed to have affected Rokor's progress, you can't really say it was worth it, like numbers wise, right?
I mean, let's look at that. So, like, I mean, going from season 4, I suppose, season 4, which was June last year, 34,900, which obviously I think was a little bit, a little bit leery, a tad worrying, possibly even, that it was like a pretty notably less of a peak. I mean, obviously not a new record, even slightly, not even close to beating season 3 at all. And after that, it's like actually pretty consistently decent numbers. But obviously it's still overall going down until season 5 gets revealed, I guess, at the beginning of March. Because even the February update, it's still getting even lower. It's actually dipping below 20,000 in February, even though there was an update then. But that just tells you that update, even more specifically, just kind of just went unnoticed, which is not good. And I think no, I can't see. You can't blame them, but because it's a very, very small update and extremely technically focused. But at the same time, I do think that could have potentially, and I think it did for us a little bit, instill a concern. It's like, what if this is indicative of how the player base is going to continue to fluctuate, in that it's not going to get that high again. And that was always the worry, I think, ever since we really internalized that the peak of the game was season 3 and how we're not big fans of that. I think there was a mounting concern. It's like, what if that stays the way it is? In my opinion, I think both of us, an update that kind of doesn't really deserve to beat the peak, of DRG's player count. So it was a very pleasant surprise, actually, when obviously we skip forward once again to June 2024, and we see this.
Actual day of launch didn't beat the peak, and so I was like, oh damn, that's a shame, right? Like, fuck you.
I mean, we were saying some shit. As confident as we were in season 5, we were saying shit about in terms of reception and numbers, and that if the numbers aren't good, then that's like quite bad. We were probably even saying things like, if it doesn't beat season 3, then things like Rokor would be in trouble. I think this is something that we've said before, which I don't think is wholly,
or, the possibility of season 6, or season 7 would have been called into question, but it proved that interest in the game is as high as ever, if not obviously higher. It's just kind of a matter of the thing is, I'm not sure, like, it's difficult. It's unlikely that like new players really tuned in for season 5. It's probably just more like all the players lost along the way came back, right? All the new players within the last year finally all played at the same time with the old players that stopped playing.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that makes like end of year stats pretty important, although I don't know if these stats necessarily include sales. Oh, it does actually. Okay. So this is like the amount of units sold per year, and the most units were actually sold in 2023. So there's actually more units. That's not even like cumulative either. It's obviously that's the amount that was sold. I think that number is actually going to be pretty important for this year, because there could be a pretty notable difference between season 5 actually having the peak player count, but this year actually not being like particularly notable for sales. And if that's the case, that does tell you that season 5's player, like the season 5 player base, is composed of mostly people who have already have the game. And season 5 has just done a good job at bringing more people back than ever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's pushing sales that far. And that is very much so could be because the amount of sales that DRG is going to have in its lifetime is probably reaching a point where it's going to plateau. It's going to stop being exponential. I would not be surprised if there's less than that many sales. I wouldn't be surprised if there's less than 2 million this year. Like, that's almost definitely the case, I reckon. Like, if we can crack 10 million total, I think that'd be awesome. But I don't think it's going to beat the amount of sales from the last 2 years. I think that'd be surprising.
I don't know. Like, obviously, the rate at which it's been going up has been slowing down, but I don't think it means it's going to start like going down. Like, if they were going to make less sales per year. But yeah, no, I don't think the sales are going to be off the roof, really. Especially considering there's not much reason. There's even less reason to buy Deep Rock now, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I guess you still would do it, but it's like you buy Deep Rock now, you get a game that won't be updated for the next 2 years, and then a new game will come out like next year, which you're gonna want to buy instead because, or not instead, but like you're gonna want to buy as well. So it's kind of it's the hardest it's ever been to justify getting Deep Rock. Like
Yeah, it's like it's a weird difference. It's like it's actually very. It's kind of hard to justify that. If someone asked me if they should buy it, I would say well, I would actually say yes because it's still in the most feature complete state it's ever been in, objectively speaking. But if you're looking for a live service game, for example, if that's what you're looking for, like if you asked me if you should buy it, and I asked why are you interested, and it's because you want something that's going to be like an active game in terms of flow, like in the inflow of content. I would say don't buy it for that reason, at least. Don't buy it because you think it's going to be like there's going to be new stuff coming regularly. I would say just wait for roll call, but at the same time, even if it's getting a bit harder to justify buying it, it's very justifiable to get back into it though, even if you're not going to be back into it for that entire time. That's extremely unlikely, but if you haven't been into it for a while, it's still very much so worth checking out again, at least. And Season 5 has proved that, I think. Which is why, yeah, I do think it's going to be important to see the difference between the sales and the fact that Season 5 has given the game a new peak player count, because that will tell us that it's probably a lot of returning players than anything else.
Yeah, because it's like
if the new peak is composed mostly of returning players, that's pretty impressive. You get a new peak player count mostly out of bringing people back. That probably doesn't happen that often.
Like Season 3 was in 2022, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really where that jump occurs because Season 3.
Oh yeah.
Season 3 was Deep Rock Galactic breaking through its like niche. You have to know someone that knows someone who knew someone, like that kind of way of saying. And that was when big YouTubers were talking and playing about it and like liking it, and like streamers and that. And when memes were more prevalent than ever, and like everyone was like kind of knew about it through memes, and like Deep Rock was known.
It's when and even like the really popular the first time I saw YouTubers were like
like Zanny and that.
Which isn't really happening right now, I would say.
No, they've not really come back.
The game's just doing well because Season 5 is bringing people back. I do think this is more so. Yeah, I do think this is bringing people back more than it is bringing people in, potentially.
This is the people that have been like, as the seasons have passed, they've been like, nah, fuck this noise. These are the people that were like, fuck Rockpox, fuck Rivals. They come back and now they can like turn it off, kind of, like seasons. And even if they don't turn seasons off, this season is not that bad. But yeah, no, I don't know. It seems like it's an excuse to have people come back more than it is new people to buy into the game, which I think is the goal, right? Bring people back and keep them here for as long as they can. Make sure the game is as playable for as long as a period of time. Which, I mean, that's going to be the next one, right? Is the next like year, essentially.
Yeah, like, I mean, look, we will probably. I would say we'd probably do this again, post Rocore launching, because we would be looking at, and in that video we would be looking at both games in that, like what has been how Rocore's launch been, and how DRG has done since then. But what I don't think is inappropriate to think about is potentially thinking about Season 6, only because I think there's a pattern here that indicates how it could end up being a similarly positive scenario, actually, for the game. Because, and I think this comes down to the fact that the maintenance updates didn't do anything, right? The fact that they didn't do anything probably and it's a shot in the dark, but I do think there's some logic here. It probably means that the game not getting any updates for a year and a half to 2 years probably won't matter for Season 6, this case. Even if it dips quite a lot in player count. The truth is, the maintenance updates did not increase interest in the game at all. So there being nothing
the
will probably be
did
similar.
A lot more for the game.
Exactly.
Actual content.
Yeah. So it's very easy to see why. It's very easy to see that it might not matter that the game's basically just gonna be switched off for at least a year and a half. As far as Season 6 is concerned, it could just as easily experience a new peak in Season 6 because of that. Especially after Rogue Core, which, that's the kind of thing that I can't predict, if a new game in the IP would renew interest in the other game. I don't know if that's really how it works, but it very easily could.
I think it really. If I think there's a mindset that someone could have, like they play it now and they kind of put it down, or they're not even playing it now, and then like in a year or so time they hear about Rogue Core and they're like, I remember Deep Rock, like that kind of thing, and then they'd load it up. If there's like enough of people like that, then that would work. I know Mitchell's friends, my brother's friends, wanted to play Deep Rock yesterday, which I don't think they normally do that. So there's something. People are just like anyone who knew about Deep Rock previously, I think, is willing to give it another try, or like feels like playing it again. That's like what the effect Season 5 has had.
But I do think if we're right in that a lot of Season 5, reaching a new peak player count is actually based on players coming back, that could indicate something a tad less fortuitous, which is that it does potentially mean that DRG has reached its end of like growing and having a bigger outreach, and that peak player counts are only going to come from bringing more and more people back in. And that could tell you why something like Rogue Core is probably needed, because that's how they're actually going to get
it's a bit
actual
of a
new sales
situation, really. I think.
Absolutely.
It's like, it is Deep Rock done, like commercially, because they're launching Rogue Core, like there's a new game, so there's going to be less interest. People are more interested in the new game, or is it they're making a new game because Deep Rock was getting less attention and it was kind of hitting its ceiling, like.
Are you talking about like public perception or something?
No, like I don't know, like is Deep Rock hitting its cap because there's a new game coming out, or is there a new game coming out because it's approaching its cap? Like that chicken and the egg.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads into, I think, the more important and probably less answerable question is if it would have been going down anyway, whether they were making Rogue Core or not. And I lean towards yes. By the way, I lean towards it would be going down still. It would be.
I think they add, like, and I think this is the fucking truth of the matter, and I swear, because it's just the absolute truth. They add Rogue Core to the main game, like how they were playing originally. It would have maybe done like like as well as like Season 3.
Yeah.
Or, like, like it probably would have like been like, oh, an interesting new game mode, and it would have like tacked on. But then ultimately, the game would have been like this again, right? It would have been going back down to normal player numbers. Meanwhile, Rogue Core, I mean, is it not essentially going to be doubling the amount of players that play their games overall? Like, there's going to be people that are still just play Deep Rock constantly, and then there's going to be a new faction of people playing Rogue Core constantly. Unlike those people that would have, Rogue Core would have been a worse experience, so there wouldn't have been as many on this. Like, I think ultimately, making a new game was so clearly the right decision. I think, and like these numbers do kind of help reinforce that. In some kind of way, I think.
No, I mean, absolutely, easily. I mean, that comes down to whether or not you think a roguelite is a good idea, I suppose, though. I think for Rogue Core, for the idea to be as good as possible, the new game is like easily a better option. And also, fiscally, economically, numbers wise, also a better idea. So I don't really know what I'm getting at. It just depends on whether or not it has like a positive reception or not. Honestly, I don't see it not having a positive reception. I think as long as people are still open to roguelites at all, then it should be fine. If it's literally become like a sinful genre, though, that's the one thing you got to worry about, because it's there's a little bit of that brewing, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, except for like Hades 2, where people are like, yes, Hades 2, and they don't give a shit that it's a roguelike.
I mean, well, the thing is, you can actually, I think you probably wouldn't find it very easily if you were to look through here. I could do it briefly, but things you can look at an example of, a roguelite that already exists in the IP, And I don't know if I want to find it this way. It should not be too. The thing is, this is when you start to get to the numbers. So there it is. But this is where you start to get to the numbers where it's like they're all just around this number. But yeah, so you have Deep Rock Survivor. Whoa, that's higher than Deep Rock's.
Launch? It was launch, yeah.
Launch was that's pretty much when it launched, I think.
I'm not gonna say much because I know you play it. Like whether or not Survivor is good or not, ultimately it is like a offshoot game made by an offshoot company, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Right, I need to close that quickly because I need to start playing stuff. Oh no, that will. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, ultimately, I think Survivor. This genre is niche as well than even
more
like
niche,
and like base Deep Rock. So the fact that it starts that high, you can basically guarantee that Rogue Core is going to be that but more, right?
Like, well, okay, but I need to point out here. So a lot of this stuff doesn't matter, but this one does. This is a big update that happened very shortly after Season 5, by the way, so that you could also, maybe that has a little bit to do with, Deep Rock taking attention away. But June 25th, I mean, look, where's that? There you go, there it is. And it's rising a tiny bit, but nothing compared to launch.
It's going up on average. Yeah, but ultimately, it's like the game would never have had a launch that big if it wasn't part of the Deep Rock IP, right? It is never going to sustain that amount of players. That much I think everyone knows, and I think considering it's doing well and it is going up, that's all you can really hope for in a game in its current state. It shouldn't be doing what Deep Rock is doing currently, and plateauing.
So it's not really worth looking at something like
new game,
Spell Rogue necessarily, but constantly. What this tells us, this does work as evidence that Deep Rock Galactic, the IP, can at least give a game a good launch, But the difference is, I think Deep Rock had to build. Deep Rock obviously did not have a big launch, Deep Rock's peak was its most recent update, Survivor's peak was its launch, and it's mostly gone down since.
Peak was even higher.
Yeah.
I think we could definitely expect Rogue Core to get 60k on launch.
Oh, I think so.
Minimum,
possibly more.
Yeah.
Not. I don't think 100k is necessarily in the cards.
No, but probably not. I mean, I'd be very chuffed if it was, but like it would depend. And I think that would require new people. Right, that's not IP. That's not old players. That is marketing.
It's the roguelike gang
and finding people that have never even played Deep Rock Galactic to start playing it, and it to do well otherwise.
And there is already a decent amount of crossover because roguelites, especially the more popular ones, do reside in the mainstream indie space. If you know what I mean, right? And that's kind of where Deep Rock resides as well. It's a mainstream indie game. So there probably is a lot of crossover in the audiences already, which means you might not see a big jump because of roguelike players. Most of them probably already aware of Deep Rock.
Rogue Core will very, very likely have a huge launch, but it will also plummet, probably similarly to Survivor, because ultimately, even though roguelikes are inherently replayable, they're also kind of not, right? Like depending on how much is in the game on launch, there is only going to be so much replayability. Like RoboQuest, right, Harry? Like you could play it infinitely, it seemed, but an average person
not anymore.
Exactly. So Deep Rock will probably also plummet like astronomically compared to its launch, but it should hold a higher number, I would imagine.
It should. Well, I mean, this does come down to a little bit how valued big Deep Rock updates are now, I suppose. And then you have to think about how valued are Rogue Core's post-launch updates going to be in comparison. Probably not even close to as much value placed on them because they're going to be much more expected and much more just like they're not going to. There's an element of desperation when it comes to the seasons now for Deep Rock. There's an element of desperation in it, making the game, bringing people back, and it's saving the game again, as if it needs saving. But
yeah, but go look at like the beginning of Deep Rock, right? Because that'll be like some way of telling, like the updates.
The actual launch.
I guess
February 2018.
Yeah, launches and the updates are kind of just there, right? That like players are playing. Sometimes they're not. I guess whenever there isn't an update.
I don't know what March 2019 was.
Good. It looks a bit.
Let's find out. Let's find out. But yeah, I think Roku's updates are just gonna be more like expected, though. They're probably not gonna have make a big splash, but like there's an element. There's always a lot of anticipation for Deep Rock's updates now. It's just how it goes. I've got to look at all this stuff. March 2019. Nothing in particular.
People, I guess it was an external thing. Maybe
this update.
Someone big talked about it.
It was just hidden in a weird like thing. But yeah, this update happened.
The new enemies stuff. That's a good update. So yeah, I guess we don't need to know all the stuff.
I guess that would be what it is. And then there's also launch, which is around the middle of. Yes, I think this is launch actually, March 2020. 20,000. That'd be interesting to see actually the difference between Rogue Core's and Deep Rock's 1.0 launch. As in, let's be honest, Rogue Core's early access launch is going to be way bigger than its 1.0 launch. Rogue Core is going to make way more of a splash when it first comes out than when they're like, oh, well, we actually think it's like 1.0 now. Especially because they didn't treat it. They didn't even treat Deep Rock like it that much. Like Hades 2 is probably going to be like essentially like a re-release when it goes 1.0. Especially when it comes to consoles. But DRG, it was kind of just another update, except they were like, now we're like calling it 1.0. It was already full price before, It's just their way of doing things and basically just giving themselves an excuse to have the game be live, but they're still making it basically. I do think Rogue Core's 1.0 launch will be much smaller, unless it's the opposite and it's much bigger. It's either much smaller or much bigger. I don't think it's going to be like the same proportion of an increase. It's either going to be like basically stay the same player count or like big like relaunch. I don't know. But this is season 5. It did it.
Yeah,
it broke the record.
It did it,
and that was actually really important. It was nice. I was really worried that it wasn't going to, but I mean, that's gone away. And you can call me chuffed, but who knows when the next thing is going to happen that will draw attention back to Deep Rock. I mean, actually, I guess next anniversary is probably going to be slightly interesting, because there's not necessarily going to be anything particularly close by, except Rogue Core by that point. So, see whether or not that does anything for Deep Rock. Not that we would do this around that time. But I think that's it's like squeezing a lemon of its juices. I think we got all the juice out, basically.
Yeah, it's like bleeding a stone, as the saying goes.
But bleeding a stone is supposed to be impossible.
We achieve the impossible in this channel.
As in, no, we don't. Oh, so what's the impossible? Is it talking for like excessive amounts of time about things that you shouldn't be able to?
Yeah, managing to like make like a single bar graph conversation for like 40-something minutes.
Yeah, I mean, even that is arguably excessive, but that is still where it's going to be, because this is not going to be any longer. I think we are drawn to a close, and that close is 53,558 players or something. I don't know.
Yep, and unless some weird thing occurs, that's probably going to be the peak. Honestly, forever.
Forever.
If I had to guess, yeah, I think that's Deep Rock. I would love to be proven wrong, but
yeah, I guess it would be pointless. I guess it would be pointless
bet.
to ask a question like if you think Season 6 would beat Season 3 as well, because it's just that's so granular, so like
yeah. I mean, it's either
intricate
beating
of
the
a
record
question.
or it's like not close. I think really.
Yeah. Well, that is the only slightly strange thing about Season 5 is that it beat it, but not like by like a huge amount. Actually, it beat it by roughly 8,000 players. So not even 10,000. But it still did it. So it's not actually like, it's not like an explosion, really. It is, though, in comparison to where the player count was sitting before Season 5, but not actually in comparison to Season 3. And it would have been nice to see it like go absolutely bananas, but I think when it came down to it, our main wish was for it to beat Season 3, and that was kind of it. Because as long as it could do that, it was really just about dethroning Season 3, I think, for us.
Yep.
For an update that just absolutely deserves it more than Season 3 does. And you know what? Season 4, yeah, it's kind of icky that it had such a, not unnoticed, but such a just a lower peak, and did not even come close to breaking the record, but didn't deserve to. I mean, that was going to be the real kicker. If it didn't beat Season 4, I think we would be pretty put out. Because that would just be such a bad sign. Because Season 4 deserves to be low down in comparison. Like the fact that, that felt like a fairly slow time where it did feel like the game was kind of teetering. Especially with Rogue being announced, it was like, with the way people responded to that, it was almost on a knife's edge of whether or not Deep Rock was about to actually plummet, truly or not. And the fact that there's actually been a bell curve, or I don't actually think it's a bell curve necessarily, but you kind of get what I mean, just an impressionistic bell curve of like it dipping after Season 3, and then going through a lot of uncertainty with Season 4, not being great, followed up with a very mixed reception to this big announcement that would impact Deep Rock heavily. Going through that, only to come out with a higher peak than Season 3 is, well done, Season 5, on making that happen.
Yeah.
And well done us for putting up with it. no, well done, Go Ship, though. All right, I think that's about it for this charade.
Charade.
Okay, well, all right. If you enjoyed this, thank you. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Yeah, Garth. Bosh. Please make sure to like and subscribe. If you want to stay on top of everything to Deep Rock and Rogue Core, then of course, click the bell as well. I don't know what we're gonna do. I think next week will be a podcast, but I don't know what it's gonna be. I think it's either gonna be looking forward a bit, which is a bit scary, or we're just gonna look at comments. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But either way, yeah, like Tyler said, what did you say? Cheers, Governor. Yeah, cheers, Gov. See you next time. Actually, hopefully I'll see you all, hopefully I'll see you on Tuesday. Hopefully.
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah, you see, I very deliberately avoided saying that.
Ayo.
Alright, I'm going to finish this at 44.